We expect to hear the first testimony today in the sex crimes trial of Sean Diddy Combs here in New York. The jury will be chosen this morning and sworn in. Combs has pleaded not guilty to racketeering and sex trafficking charges.
The final phase of jury selection in Sean Diddy Combs' federal criminal trial is getting underway. 12 jurors and 6 alternates. They are expected to be seated this morning, and then opening statements begin. We could see also the prosecution's key witness, Combs' former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, testify today.
This story is far from over. The trial is just getting started, and every day brings new revelations. If you want to stay informed and ahead of the headlines, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're covering the courtroom, the fallout, and what this means for the future of hip-hop. Don't miss a beat. Subscribe now. If you thought the Diddy case couldn't get messier, strap in. Because now it's not just about the mogul. It's not just about the mansions, the NDAs, or the alleged trafficking rings. Now, the sun is on the stand. Christian Combs, yes, that Christian, Diddy's mini-me, the music industry's next-gen heir, is now in the hot seat, dragged straight into the legal firestorm his father is already suffocating in. And the courtroom exploded. It all started with a bombshell filing tied to a civil lawsuit involving a December 2022 yacht party. Not just any party, a private, VIP-only, camera-free, after-dark party on international waters. The kind of party that says, don't ask questions, and definitely don't post on Instagram. But somebody did ask questions. Enter Grace Omar, a crew member on the yacht who filed a lawsuit alleging that she was sexually assaulted by Christian Combs during that very night. And the details? They're sickening. Grace claims she was pressured, coerced, into drinking alcohol, that it was possibly drugged, that she lost consciousness, that she woke up to find herself being assaulted. And the name she gave? Christian Combs. Let that sink in. This isn't a rumor. This isn't tabloid chatter. This is a civil case, filed in court, backed by medical reports and witness testimony. And when the courtroom heard the allegations, silence dropped like a bomb. The moment Grace's attorney read aloud the description of the assault, multiple people in the gallery gasped. Christian, who was present at the hearing, got up, walked out, didn't return. And the media had a field day. Court reporters said he looked white as a sheet, visibly shaken, and on the verge of collapse. That exit wasn't planned. It wasn't tactical. It was panic, caught on record. Let's be real here. Up until this point, Christian was seen as the polished, inherited version of his father's brand. Diddy, but with Instagram filters and Gen Z marketing. He modeled. He rapped. He dated Instagram-famous women. He posed like royalty. But behind the aesthetic, apparently the same rot. This civil suit has cracked the image wide open, and now the public isn't just questioning Diddy. They're questioning the legacy, the upbringing, the culture inside the Combs household. And here's where it gets even darker. This isn't happening in isolation. Christian is being named in the middle of Diddy's own federal trial. A trial that includes allegations of trafficking, racketeering, abuse, and control. A trial where prosecutors are laying out a whole system that allegedly spanned decades and involved not just Diddy, but enablers, assistants, and people close to him. And now, that circle has officially gone bloodline deep. Because if the allegations against Christian hold up, if the evidence connects, it won't just be a civil suit. It could turn into a criminal indictment. And if that happens, the feds might start asking the next question. What did Diddy know? What did he cover up? Who protected Christian? Was there pressure on the victim to stay quiet? Were there payouts? Were NDAs involved? Because one lawsuit opens the door. But two, that's when prosecutors start to build patterns. And Grace Omar's story fits the Diddy narrative a little too well. A luxury setting, controlled access, drugs, alcohol, intimidation, assault, followed by silence, until now. And this isn't some far-fetched tale. The details are chillingly specific. The night, the time, the people on the boat, the lighting, the music. She even described the exact location where the alleged assault occurred. A private guest cabin on the lower deck. Security camera conveniently off. Nobody checking in. This is how predators operate when they think they're untouchable. And now the public is watching in real time as that untouchability burns to ash. Because the second this news dropped, the headlines were merciless. Sponsors distanced themselves. Influencers stopped tagging him. A fashion label Christian had modeled for quietly deleted his campaign images. The message is clear. Nobody wants to go down with the Combs family. And honestly, who can blame them? We're now dealing with multiple lawsuits, federal charges, audio leaks, A-list witnesses, and now a civil sexual assault case involving the heir apparent. This isn't just scandal. This is collapse. And let's talk about the optics. Christian's abrupt courtroom exit? Not a good look. Lawyers can spin it however they want. He was overwhelmed. It was emotional. Blah, blah, blah. But the reality? You don't bolt from a courtroom when someone accuses you of rape unless something in that story hits too close to home. The judge, reportedly unimpressed. The prosecution, watching closely. Diddy's own lawyers are now reportedly preparing countermoves because Christian's name might come up during the federal trial, whether they want it to or not. Imagine this. You're Diddy. You're facing life in prison. You've rejected a plea deal. You're betting it all on image and control. And now your own son might be named in evidence against you. That's not just a bad day. That's a dynasty on fire. And it's not just about what happens in court, it's what happens in culture. The Combs family built a brand on power, cool, success, style. But now, that brand is being dismantled brick by brick. The public isn't buying it anymore. They're not streaming your music because they love you, they're trying to find the lyrics they missed. They're not rewatching the interviews because they're nostalgic, they're looking for the red flags. Because when you fall this hard, people start playing detective. And this trial, this lawsuit, they're no longer isolated events. They're a blueprint. They show the public and the industry that the silence is broken, that NDAs can be challenged, that fame won't shield you anymore. And Christian, he's finding that out the hard way. And now, the courtroom has gone from tense to toxic. You'd think that the temperature couldn't get any hotter after Diddy's own criminal charges, racketeering, trafficking, financial coercion, but no, it got hotter. Because when Christian Combs' name was officially tied to a civil sexual assault suit, everything shifted. The room didn't just fall silent. It curdled. You could feel it in the air. The attorneys stiffened, the gallery leaned in, and reporters' fingers flew across their keyboards like this was the first domino in a whole new row of destruction. Because this wasn't just some legal side plot. This was the heir to the throne being called out on the record. In a courtroom tied to federal proceedings against his own father. Let's be real, Christian wasn't just in Diddy's shadow. He was the chosen one. The face of the brand's second act. Groomed, styled, packaged, he was supposed to carry the legacy forward. He walked in red carpets Diddy laid out. He lived in the house that bad boy built. He got the endorsements, the press, the attention. And now, he's running out of the courtroom mid-hearing like someone lit a match under his chair. That's not nervous. That's guilty-adjacent panic. The civil suit filed by Grace Omar doesn't tiptoe around anything. It lays it out in cold, unfiltered language. Drugged alcohol, pressure, isolation, physical violation. The timeline is clear. The location is documented. The witnesses are named. And the moment it hit the court record, Christian cracked. He didn't stay to hear his lawyer speak. He didn't look at the judge. He didn't even wait for recess. He just left. Now, ask yourself, what kind of man walks out of a courtroom in the middle of being accused of something this serious, unless he knows that what's coming next is going to rip the floor out from under him? But let's talk big picture. This isn't just a Christian problem. This is the Combs family machine finally facing blowback. For decades, they've lived above scrutiny. Parties like fantasies, VIP rooms within VIP rooms, security details trained to shut down anything before it leaked. And when something did leak, the response was always the same. By silence, erase receipts, spin the narrative. But this time, the receipts are in court, and the narrative, spinning out of control. See, Grace Omar's testimony fits the larger web of allegations like a puzzle piece that was always missing. The same dynamics we've heard about in Diddy's case, coercion, isolation, luxury masking predation, are showing up again. But this time, with a different face. A younger face. And that's the part that should terrify every brand, every executive, every friend who stood beside the Combs family in silence. The possibility that this wasn't just about one man. What if this is a legacy of behavior? A learned pattern? A culture passed down behind closed doors? Because make no mistake, this lawsuit doesn't just name Christian, it exposes how he was moving in the exact same style that's gotten his father indicted. Same power games. Same setting. Same absence of accountability. And when a pattern repeats through a generation, that's when the courts start talking conspiracy. And let's not forget, Christian is allegedly cooperating with the feds in Diddy's case. Now stop. Think about that. You're cooperating with prosecutors on your father's trafficking case. Then your own sexual assault case hits the courts. Now you're not just a son. You're a liability. To yourself. To your family. To the entire empire that was built around your last name. You know what happens next. Everyone starts jumping ship. The stylists disappear first. The fashion houses stop returning calls. The club invites dry up. Suddenly, the influencers aren't tagging you in photos. Your publicist takes a break. And the PR firm that used to feed you cover stories? Radio silence. That's exactly what's happening to Christian Combs right now. He's being ghosted by an industry that knows how this movie ends. They've seen this film before. And no one wants to be in the background of the downfall. Meanwhile, courtroom observers say Diddy hasn't addressed the allegations against Christian directly, but his energy changed the second Grace Omar's case hit the record. He went from agitated to borderline comatose. His usual courtroom confidence, the head nods, the whispering to lawyers, the fake meditation, vanished. Because this isn't just public humiliation anymore. This is a family name on fire. And here's where it gets nuclear. If prosecutors can show that Diddy had knowledge of, or covered for, Christian's behavior, that civil case could become a federal enhancement. Think obstruction. Think aiding and abetting. Think RICO with a bloodline twist. Because now it's not just about whether Diddy built a network to exploit people. It's about whether that network became a legacy business. Now we're hearing whispers from court-adjacent sources that more alleged victims are watching closely. Not just people tied to Diddy. Not just partygoers. But those who crossed paths with Christian. Women who were dismissed as jealous or clout-chasing. People who were told they didn't have enough proof. People who were told, "You're crazy, that's Diddy's son." And now, they're writing statements. Because when one person sues and makes it public, it gives permission. And when permission starts spreading, the walls collapse. That's what's happening now. The Combs name isn't just being tried in court, it's being interrogated in culture. And the public has already started rewriting the narrative. It's not bad apple. It's not unfortunate mistake. It's generational corruption. The kind you can't rebrand. The kind you can't PR your way out of. The kind that burns empires to the ground. And make no mistake, this is the beginning of the real burn. So let me leave you with this. We've got a father on trial for some of the most serious federal crimes imaginable. We've got a son named in a civil sexual assault suit with eerily familiar patterns. We've got victims lining up. We've got brands fleeing. We've got courtrooms full of gasps, exits, and silence. This isn't just a scandal anymore. This is legacy rot. And once that rot hits daylight, you can't hide behind your net worth. You can't lawyer up fast enough. You can't NDA the public. You can't distract with a remix. This time, people are listening. And just when you thought the room couldn't get more tense, boom. Another legal filing lands, this time hinting that Grace Omar's attorneys are requesting digital records from the yacht. Not just security footage, which, of course, wasn't available because the cameras were offline, but the ship's smart tech logs, cabin entries, lighting controls, music playlists, even guest Wi-Fi traffic. Yeah, they're going there. Because if you can't get a camera, you can get a timeline. Who entered which suite? When the lights dimmed? Which devices were connected? What music was playing? These aren't just tech specs. These are contextual fingerprints. And if any of that tech corroborates Grace's version of events, if it shows Christian entering that cabin at the exact hour she said she blacked out, forget civil. That's criminal implications with a digital trail. You know how we always say rich people leave paper trails because they pay for everything? Well, turns out they leave data trails too. Especially when they automate their luxury. And now Christian might have to answer for what his own smart yacht knows. Let's talk about that for a second. Because this isn't some rented party boat from a dock in Miami. This was a multi-million-dollar, fully staffed, floating fortress of secrecy. The kind of setup that's made to keep secrets in, and phones out. But even luxury can't beat forensic science. And that's what Grace's legal team is betting on. That somewhere in the lighting logs, the Bluetooth signals, the environmental controls, there's a moment that proves she was telling the truth. And Christian, he better pray those records don't speak louder than he can. Because right now, he's doing a whole lot of not talking. No statements. No denial. Just a ghosted courtroom, a vanishing Instagram presence, and a PR team that went from overdrive to radio silence. He's gone full bunker mode. Which, if we're being honest, is the exact wrong move in a case like this. Because when someone accuses you of sexual assault, and your response is to disappear, people start assuming the worst. The public reads silence as guilt. Especially when your last known public moment was literally fleeing the courtroom. And trust, every single juror, prosecutor, journalist, and casual court observer took note of that moment. You don't have to say, "I did it," when your body language is screaming, "Get me out of here." Meanwhile, legal analysts are already speculating, if this case gains momentum, it could be a Trojan horse into Diddy's trial. Why? Because now the Combs family defense team has to consider the optics of two men, same family, facing similar allegations at the same time. Even if Christian isn't criminally charged yet, the reputation bleed is unavoidable. It weakens the defense. It undermines the "this was all consensual" angle. It tells a jury, look, this didn't just happen once. And in the world of federal prosecution, pattern is everything. If you can establish behavior wasn't isolated, but part of a culture, a repeated power dynamic, a system, a method, that's when the case snowballs. And that's what they're building right now. Christian's behavior, regardless of whether it results in criminal charges, could become contextual evidence. The kind the prosecution uses to show Diddy wasn't a one-man operation. That this wasn't just the actions of a rogue executive. That it trickled down. And that's when it gets generational. Because if Christian learned how to move in that world by watching his father, If he absorbed the rules of how to treat women, how to party, how to shut people down and make them feel small and powerless, then the defense can't spin this as a single broken man. It becomes a family system, a dynasty of silence. And in that courtroom, there is no bigger nail in your coffin than that. Now let's talk about the industry panic. Since Grace's lawsuit hit, whispers are surfacing that several other women who crossed paths with Christian, at parties, on tours, even in brand deal settings, are now reaching out to lawyers. Not all of them are claiming assault, but some are reportedly alleging inappropriate conduct, coercive comments, aggressive behavior. Why now? Because it only takes one brave voice to flip the dominoes. And let's be clear, this isn't about one man. This is about how power operated unchecked in the Combs circle for far too long. Private jets, locked hotel floors, VIP booths within VIP booths, curated guest lists with zero oversight. And now, every single person who ever felt something wasn't right during those nights is wondering, was I next? Was I lucky? Did I ignore something because I was too scared to speak? And once that gate opens, there's no closing it. Let's not forget, this family was bulletproof for 2 decades. They were beyond cancellation. Brands loved them. The press idolized them. People named their kids after them. And now they're facing the one enemy no PR team can spin away: receipts. Because courts don't care about your legacy. They care about the timeline. Who was where? Who said what? Who paid who? And when it's Christian's name on the guest list, on the Wi-Fi, on the luxury suite booking, on the NDA draft, the "he's just a kid" defense doesn't fly anymore. Because guess what? If you're grown enough to drug and assault a woman on a yacht, you're grown enough to face court. And the fact that this happened after Diddy's own empire was already cracking? That's what makes it worse. You'd think, in the middle of a federal investigation, the one thing you'd do is lay low. But no. You went and allegedly did exactly what your father is being prosecuted for. That's not reckless. That's generational arrogance. And now, it's finally being confronted. Let's get into it, because what we're watching isn't just a trial. It's a generational collapse, and the cracks are now swallowing Christian Combs whole. Remember when he was just the cool son? The one flexing on yachts, walking red carpets, posing like his dad's legacy was some kind of fashion line he could wear? All smiles, sunglasses, and Ciroc commercials? Well, that shine is gone. Now we're looking at a man, yes, a man, not a kid, whose name is in black ink on a civil sexual assault filing. And it wasn't just filed in some side courtroom hoping for a settlement. It was dropped in the shadow of his father's criminal trial, practically begging for the world to connect the dots. This isn't a headline. It's a warning shot. And inside the courtroom, people are listening. Judges, journalists, federal investigators. You could practically feel the shift the moment Christian's name came out of the plaintiff's attorney's mouth. That was the sound of a defense team clenching, a publicist muting their phone, and the prosecution taking notes. Because here's what they know, and what Christian clearly didn't account for: it's not about being named. It's about being linked. Every accusation now gets weighed against the culture that Diddy built. And if the son was operating the same way the father allegedly did, if he learned the tactics, the coercion, the code of silence from the inside, that's not bad parenting. That's training. Let's talk about that. Because what Grace Omar describes in her lawsuit isn't just traumatic, it's eerily familiar. The alcohol, she says, was pushed on her. The way she felt like saying no wasn't an option. The absence of cameras. The sense that she wasn't just invited, she was being watched. This isn't some random incident. This is a playbook. One that sounds a lot like what victims in Diddy's case have been saying for years. And now that playbook has a second name on it: Christian Combs. So here's the new question on everyone's mind. Was this ever just about Diddy? Because if your son is moving the same way, in the same environments, using the same methods, then we're not just talking about one predator. We're talking about a system, a family culture, a business model, a machine of silence dressed up in designer. And while Christian was probably groomed to believe he'd be untouchable, he isn't. Because when a survivor files suit with names, details, timestamps, and medical records, that's not gossip. That's evidence. And now there's talk, inside the courtroom, whispered in the halls, that more legal filings may be coming. You think Grace was the only one who saw something on those yachts? You think she's the only one who felt threatened, humiliated, or drugged at a Combs-hosted event? Absolutely not. But what happens is, the first brave person breaks the glass, and suddenly people start realizing they're not alone. That the fear, the shame, the NDAs, the gaslighting, the power imbalance, it wasn't just them. It was by design. And once the illusion of safety for the abuser is gone, it's over. Because the same luxury systems that protected them, private chefs, silent security, event curators, paid for loyalty, they all start to crack. And once they do, the people who once stayed silent to keep their jobs, now they've got something else. Legal immunity offers. Translation. Witnesses are flipping. Behind the scenes. Quietly. Efficiently. And once even one yacht crew member confirms Grace's account of what went down, or who went down that hallway, or who was buzzed into that cabin, that civil suit becomes something prosecutors call a predicate act. Which means evidence of an ongoing criminal enterprise. And guess what? They already think they've got one. Diddy's trial is about more than trafficking. It's about conspiracy. RICO-level conspiracy. Which means the government is already building a case around patterns, not just moments. So Christian, he just became a pattern point. A second-generation piece of the same puzzle. And once a RICO case starts looking intergenerational, all bets are off. You know what else changes? The media tone. The same magazines that once fawned over Christian's fits and red carpet appearances are now scrubbing articles. The blogs that hyped his mixtape? Quiet. The stylists, photographers, brand ambassadors, and marketing managers? Gone. Even his friends? Silence. Not even a "pray for my bro" tweet. Just digital tumbleweeds. Because nobody wants to be the last one standing next to a sinking dynasty. Especially when that dynasty starts dragging down people who thought they were safe. And let's not pretend the courtroom doesn't feel this shift. Christian walking out mid-hearing? It didn't just spook the press. It spooked the judge. Because people who are falsely accused don't run, they fight. They stare down the lies. They demand their day in court. But Christian, he ran. Not from the lawsuit. From the possibility that the evidence is real. And now, every silence from his team feels like confirmation. His lawyers tried to spin the walkout as emotional distress. But courtroom insiders said he looked like someone cornered. Not shaken, exposed. Like he knew the minute Grace's team dropped the specifics, his name was now in the crosshairs of the same prosecutors who've been digging through his dad's life for a year straight. Because remember, if the feds find any link between Diddy's accused trafficking system and Christian's alleged assault, that's no longer just a civil matter. That's conspiracy. That's federal. That's make a deal or go down hard territory. And you better believe the prosecution would love nothing more than to flip one Combs against the other, especially when one is already cracking under pressure. So let me say it louder. This is no longer just about, did Christian assault someone? This is about whether he was part of something bigger. And the courtroom knows it. You can see it in the way the prosecution raises their eyebrows when Christian's name is mentioned. You can feel it in the way they phrase things now: known associates, family-linked events, patterns of behavior. This isn't speculation. This is foundation work. Because what they're really doing now is building a case that doesn't stop at Diddy. One that doesn't end with a single conviction. One that reaches into every satellite, every shell company, every handler, every party planner, every family member who ever facilitated, excused, or mimicked the behavior. This is the beginning of a reckoning. So if you're wondering how deep this goes, the answer is all the way down. The legacy is shattered. The courtroom isn't just trying one man. It's trying a dynasty built on silence. And Christian, he's not just caught in the crossfire. He may be holding the next piece of evidence. Let me know in the comments if you think Christian's civil suit is the start of a bigger case, or just another domino in the collapse of the Combs empire. Be sure to subscribe, because we're not done. Not by a long shot. The courtroom is speaking, and the Combs name is cracking wide open.